views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Phi Labs or the Archway Protocol. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only.
Welcome back to the Archin Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Weisen, and joined with co-host Valeria Salazar.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be back. Happy New Year.
We took a couple weeks off. I hope everyone had some nice holidays. We sure did, but it is January 11th. Time to get back to you guys with some Wednesday morning news from around the cosmos and beyond.
Yep. So let's go ahead and start with the proposals. Following up on our last news update, Proposal 89 has passed. If you don't recall, Proposal 89 is the one that Cosmic Validator requested to create YouTube videos. So that caused a little bit of community outrage just because, you know, a lot of validators changed their votes last minute. And so some people were not too happy about that.
And that is the reason we're coming to you guys with news, because we have ours on the way. Congratulations to the Cosmic Validator. We look forward to seeing what videos you guys put out. This is an interesting precedent, especially with so many votes changing in the last hour before it going live. So definitely a little bit controversial, but it did pass. That is how governance is set up. They did get funded, and look forward to seeing what they make.
Yeah, absolutely. And so following up on Prop 90, which was the proposal to fund our Endow for community health research, has failed. So that failed 13.35% to 49.19%.
Yeah, so we had talked about it a little bit where they had done these proposals on quite a few other chains, like even non-Cosmos, and they want to do a lot of research grants, and they have a lot of really well-written articles and papers, but it was a pretty hefty ask without clear and set forth ROI, and they weren't a part of the lasting Cosmos community, so it does seem like that was definitely held against them.
Moving on to Prop 93 from the Cosmos Hub. So this proposal is setting rules for how open source projects can request funds.
So we're seeing a really large infight kind of and precedent being set on what can be closed source, what can be open source. We had touched base on the kind of back and forth between Kujira and Jacob Gadikian previously, and we recently seen Juno pass a proposal saying that they're only going to fund open source projects, and now this is migrating to the Cosmos Hub. It is interesting. We see, if you look outside, like on Solana, they will only fund from the community pool things that are building infrastructure, but then they'll give grants to things that are closed source. And they want the infrastructure to be open source because that's benefiting the protocol, but they like that projects themselves and like independent apps are closed source so that they can retain intellectual property. I'm personally cautious that if we steer too close to open source everything, that it will make it really difficult in the coming years for dApp creators, for product builders to retain their intellectual property, to not get beaten out. We'll get more and more drama as people fork others' code with more money and support and just build the same thing without putting in the work. So I personally like the idea of having anything that's money or core protocols being open source, but independent applications or independent products and projects being closed source with audits. But we're seeing so far really high support on this passing. Prop 94, another one that's live on chain right now, is it's a fund for Interchain NFTs, the game of chains. So I know Shane from Stargaze and a couple other people are going to be these judges of the game, and they want an incentivized testnet. They're asking for 20,000 Atom. Current price is a little bit over $220,000 to do this incentivized testnet and to get a bunch of different app chains involved together with NFTs and whatnot. It does seem like a really neat way to unite communities and to get the rest of the Cosmos working together. It also is a significant ask, but that does seem pretty worthwhile.
Yep, couldn't agree more. And then following up on Kujira. So the Senate votes are live, so you can vote now on the Kujira dashboard, which is blue.kujira.app. So there you can go vote for the representatives for the Senate that will control the Treasury on Kujira. Up next, Stride has released its roadmap for 2023 through Proposal 11. This proposal is intended to give guidance to core contributors of Stride for the community to indicate what they want done on Stride. So this includes a redesign of their UX, DeFi integrations on their dashboard, ongoing audits, liquid governance, an incentives calendar, and research for a few other integrations. So go check that out if you haven't already.
Very cool, will do. And the validator Staken Official has proposed to offset their carbon emissions on Akash and Agoric through Regen. Regen is a Cosmos base kind of carbon footprint program where you should be like purchasing carbon emissions, and when you purchase them, they in turn go and like plant trees and do other wonderful things in the community. So I got to touch base with them when we were in Colombia at Cosmoverse, and really nice people, really great idea, and it's nice to see this kind of be a goal when possible. How's that proposal going so far?
So Proposal 21 on Agoric was unfortunately rejected, but Proposal 31 on Akash is still ongoing. So we'll see how that turns out.
Okay. Yeah, interesting precedent set up. The community pool will vote to focus on things like carbon footprints. I know usually when things are going good, lots of people can focus on those kinds of things. We're seeing that a lot in like Europe right now, where there's a bit of an energy crisis kind of globally. It's a lot harder to worry about your carbon footprint when you're worried about keeping your lights on. But if things are going well, hopefully this might be more of a bull run proposal.
Hopefully 2023 will bring all those things. So more on going carbon neutral. Validator Regenerator proposed Proposal 83 on Juno to go carbon neutral by purchasing eco credits from osmosis. And then Gravity Bridge has also seen a proposal to go carbon neutral, proposed by Loa Labs as Proposal 108. Which plans to purchase and retire carbon credits within the Cosmos ecosystem, but they haven't specified any way to do so.
Yeah, so Cosmos ecosystem has regen. They also have C4E, which is planned to be kind of purchasing units of electricity that are more transferable. So we'll see how good they're able to do that. We'll also see if the community pool is willing to spend for things like that. Also, it is a little bit weird when community funds are used to be spent on different dApps. We've predicted for quite some time that there will be kind of this DAOception that goes on as different governances have power in other ecosystems. And with everybody being involved in more than one project in the Cosmos ecosystem at one time, there are always going to be conflicts of interest, as we saw come up in the Atom 2.0 debate. So as things on, say, Juno are governed to then go and like buy things on osmosis, it does get a little bit weird as things develop, or especially as DAOs start owning other teams' tokens in their treasury.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to content, so Tendermint Timmy, very popular and well-known Twitter favorite in the Cosmos, has recently published a game plan for funding Interchain Info, which is funded through sparkibc. And so it's self-described as a multi-chain and chain-agnostic hub for information and tooling within the Cosmos. So his goal with this is to repair the fragmentation that currently exists within the ecosystem in terms of information and tooling. And you can find the draft proposals on the Cosmos forum. So essentially what he's proposing is for each chain that aims to want to fund sparkibc, that 50% of that will go to promoting information about that specific chain, and the other 50% will go to general Cosmos tooling. So go check that out. He's hoping that this will go on many different chains. You can find the links on his Twitter. I believe he recently tweeted that.
I personally would love to see it, and we'll see Tendermint Timmy around all the time on different Twitter spaces. The dude's fantastic in the ecosystem, and this is a project worth pursuing and exploring, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Now, within the broader Cosmos, Quicksilver experienced an attack from an exploiter trying to exploit a security vulnerability in the Cosmos Hub's version of IBC Go. So unfortunately, they had to halt the chain at block 115,000. But the chain finally resumed on January 3rd and has since also been able to onboard Stargaze. But essentially, the attacker exploited a security vulnerability in the Cosmos Hub's version of IBC Go, which thankfully has since been resolved.
It really is interesting. We have heard a lot from Jay Kwan and many others about the issues of the security of auto-compounding derivatives. I know I personally speak a lot about the economics of them, but just from the security aspect, and they've argued that not only is it weird for like governance powers, does it incentivize like purpose slashing and some other strange things, but also you are trusting the funds in the contracts that somebody else controls. Now, this is an interesting attack because this exploit, like for the attacker to pull off this exploit, they had to know about this exploit and wait on it for quite some time for Quicksilver to finally go live like they had been promising to for a while. So this exploit's actually been available to pull off even on other Cosmos enabled blockchains for a while, and then just sat around and waited to do this for Quicksilver as soon as they went live. So interesting there. Not sure if it's an inside thing or not. They, as far as I know, have not come forward with anything else about the attack. But it's good to know as we do become more and more reliant on derivative providers that you are dependent on them maintaining your contracts and not getting exploited, because it's not, you know, your keys your tokens, you are passing over the keys and receiving representative ones that you hope are able to claim them, but something like this could always happen. Also, e-money will cease issuing its EEUR coin. EEUR will still be redeemable for those who have purchased it, and the e-money blockchain will continue to operate, but they have decided it makes the most financial sense to unwind the stablecoin. Now, e-money is an app chain in the Cosmos ecosystem. If you check their website, Jack Zampolin and Zucky Mannion are both involved with the project, and they have transactions that process in less than half a second. They have an on-chain limit order book. It's just interesting. It seems like the demand for EEUR isn't all that high right now, even though a lot of people are hoping to get away from dollar peg stables.
Yeah, so they have indicated that this is due to the current environment of, the wider crypto space, that there just isn't enough interest in that stablecoin to really continue pursuing it. So yeah, I mean, this is just one of the effects of a bear run, unfortunately.
Well, guys, that is some good updates for the last couple weeks from inside the Cosmos. Now, a couple important things from beyond the Cosmos.
Yeah. So up first, we have Barry v. Winklevoss. So on January 2nd, Gemini co-founder Cameron Winklevoss tweeted an open letter to DCG, specifically the CEO Barry Silbert, asking him to reach an agreement with Gemini creditors regarding their earn program and the $900 million that Gemini is owed by Genesis.
Guys, this was wild. Like the time we live in, where just giant CEOs and billionaires are just outing each other and their personal business dealings literally on Twitter for everyone to see. This is fantastic. So yeah, Winklevoss is publicly calling out the CEO like, hey, how come you're not commenting or whatnot? Like, you guys owe us $900 million. We're asking for it back. Like, yeah, we cannot reach you, so we're blasting you on Twitter. And Barry's like, oh, we don't owe you that much money. This is unprofessional. I reached out to you a couple weeks ago and you didn't reply. There's
been a bunch of back and forth on this, and Winklevoss actually demanded the removal of DCG CEO Barry Silbert just yesterday. So we'll see how that continues to evolve. But DCG isn't looking so hot right now. It's actually being investigated by the SEC. They're investigating a few transactions specifically. Well, at least we believe that the transactions in investigation are the ones that DCG loaned out to Genesis that are causing this whole problem with Gemini. So they sent out a $575 million loan to Genesis that is due in May, and then the $1.1 billion 10-year promissory note. So a little fun fact on that note. So it looks like that loan might be a callable loan in the form of a promissory note. So right now it can't be forced through execution just because Genesis is a part of DCG. But if they were to file bankruptcy on Genesis and this promissory note were callable, then creditors would be able to force repayment from Genesis. So it looks like that's why they haven't declared bankruptcy for Genesis just yet. Of course, this is all speculation, but it's been something that's been running around and people have been suspecting for a little while now on crypto Twitter.
Yeah, and this idea of a promissory note is hilarious because Barry literally called out Winklevoss. He's like, I don't owe you $900 million. And the reason wasn't because he didn't take it. Well, he didn't owe him. He does owe him the money, but it was because instead of taking out a loan, he just wrote out oh, here's an IOU. Instead of an official loan. It's the same thing. You still own the money. It's still coming out of nowhere. I'm good for it. And it's exactly how Alameda just gives out $1 billion personal loan to SBF. He's good for it. You know him. And this is all being outed before our eyes on Twitter. This would have been unimaginable 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
All right, so BlockFi, who filed bankruptcy in November at the same day, I believe November 23rd, as FTX did, reports are coming out now that they settled privately another $15 million with one of their investors, just outside of courts, who had bought at a discounted rate and felt that a lot of the information about their actual assets were undisclosed.
This is all fallout from a July emergency loan that FTX issued BlockFi, and so that's why it was so affected by the fallout from FTX. So it looks like that's been going downhill for a while now.
It's amazing how hard it is for dominoes to stay up if take $9 billion from them.
Up next for a little bit more uplifting, if you could call it that, news within the outer Web3 space. So Circle released its attestation report. And so apparently 30% of USDC's reserves, which is equivalent to around $12.79 billion, are invested with the Circle Reserve Fund, which is their government money market fund, and it's managed by BlackRock. So this essentially means that the SEC has more direct oversight into a portion of the USDC's reserves. So in theory, it just gives USDC's holders more transparency and safety assurances because there's a government entity verifying these funds and monitoring them directly through a accredited investor.
Part of me feels safer about USDC because BlackRock's involved, and part of me is super scared of it because BlackRock's involved. But yes, they have come out with their attestation report a couple days ago. Now, 2 years ago, had you read their attestation report, it was literally only dollars held in banks as collateral, and it was usually about like 0.6%, 0.5% over collateralized, which is great. Because there could be no attack on the collateral if that actually does exist in a provable bank account. Now it will read as value of assets, showing that not all of the collateral is held in dollars exactly, largely because of groups like BlackRock taking controlling interest. And it is normal for collateral to not just be in the terms of the collateral. Just as I mentioned all the time in talking about crypto-based stablecoins, as soon as you do allow collateral outside of what you are collateralizing, you have to take into account how liquid those assets are for the asset that you need should redemptions be made. So we don't have insight at this time to exactly what other assets are being used, what other commodities are collateralizing their dollars, but it should still be a very high percent dollar based. It does seem pretty safe. Just keep an eye on that if more information does come out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's it for this week's Cosmo news and the wider Web3 news update.
Cool. Valeria, thank you as always for the awesome news update. Guys, we'll be back to you next Wednesday, the 18th, for more.
See you guys then.